The Sanskrit word Naga means one who slithers on the ground, or alternately, one without legs. Naga also means serpent, but there are other Sanskrit terms for serpents, Sampa, for example, and Naga. While sometimes meaning only snake, most often refers to an animistic entity appearing as a snake, a human, or a hybrid of the two. A Naga often appears in the form of a semi-divine king cobra. While not a full god, goddess, a Naga is part animal spirit, serpent lower half, part human upper half, and part divinity. It is mentioned in the Puranas, Hindu holy books, that this makes him wholly unique in the spiritual universe of the Tantra Hinduism. They can mate with humans and bear demigod human children. Many royal lines in Asia, for example, in Myanmar, trace themselves to such unions. The Naga are divine protectors, but may also be demonic, poisonous tormentors. They can also bring gifts, healing and protection from snakes, or they can bring death and terror. In this way, they are much like you, much like humans. Let me add here, as I will use the term Naga throughout this presentation as it is used in India, to represent both singular and plural, that is, one Naga and many Naga. I will also use the term Naga to refer to both male and female serpent spirits, though the female of Naga is also seen as Nagi or Nagini when focusing on a particular Naga that is feminine. Think of both men and women referred to generically as people. Also, being demigods, the mythic sexuality of Naga is as variable as the grammar used. So, when we refer to Kundalini, a term familiar to most of you, it is often referred to as the goddess Kundalini or Shri Kundalini. But you will see here Kundalini referred to as Mahanaga or Great Naga. While I realize this may be a bit confusing, remember that we are entering the shadow world of mythology and magical descriptions, so please bear with me. Make like Russian bear and bear with me. Such snake and serpent spirits are ubiquitous in ancient animist and pantheist religious traditions worldwide. In the Western esoteric traditions, we have the Greek serpent spirit called Agathos Daemon, the guardian spirit for each person. Nereids were half-serpent beings in rivers and lakes, much like Nagas, and the genius Loki, or spirit of a place, was often depicted as a serpent. The Delphic oracle relied on a serpent intermediary, the primal titan Python, and the oracular priestess was called the Pythoness. In Greece, the Great Mother, under many names such as Gaia, Rhea, and so on, was venerated in the form of or through a serpent intermediary. Tronovis, the lion-headed serpent, was not only a mainstay image in Gnostic and pre-Gnostic Hermetic traditions, but has become a crucial image in such Western magical orders as the Golden Dawn and the Ordo Templi Orientis, representing again the guardian spirit among other things. In the ancient world, there literally existed thousands of snake or serpent spirits venerated in many places under many names. A number of popular books and videos show the cross-cultural profusion of the serpent spirit archetype. In most of the animist or pantheist pagan cultural traditions, these serpent demigods are positive beings manifesting as spiritual guardians, reflections of the inner self, or specific spirits of places and nature, are almost always associated with springs, rivers, lakes, and oceans, as well as the deep Chthonian world below. So common are serpent spirits or gods that in my travels to nearly 30 countries, I have yet to visit one where they were not prevalent. One marked shift in mankind's view of the serpent spirit came with monotheist religions that sought to demonize the earlier, far older nature religions and traditions. Thus, the serpent, devil, in the tree of life in Genesis, tempting Adam and Eve with the sin of knowledge. This serpent is the tree. In the tree is a common and positive motif in older spiritual traditions, including Naga myths. But in the Bible, it is transfigured into something sinister and evil. In Islam, the serpent became a symbol of Iblis, Satan, as it is in Christianity. Yet in Buddhism, not only are the Naga venerated and honored, but the Buddha himself is called Mahanaga. Buddhism has always been more accepting of prior myths and deities, and the serpent spirits are a prime example. There exist so many parallels in positive, or at least ambivalent, views of nature serpent spirits. One could argue an historical connection among snake spirits all over the world, including those called Nagas in Southwest Asia or Nag in Southeast Asia. I've encountered them in China as dragon spirits, in Japan as the white snake spirit living in a lake, in Korea as guardian serpent spirits, and variants all throughout Southern Asia. In Australia, the white serpent spirit, rainbow spirit, and black serpent spirit are key archetypes in Aboriginal Dreamtime mythologies. There is something deep and powerful here. As an historian, in addition to being an eclectic ritualist, I can not say with certainty that Nagas are the source of much of this global mythology, but I can say that the interchanges among prehistoric tribes and people is proving to be more pervasive and occurred far more earlier than most thought possible, even a few years ago. Finding Buddhas in Viking graves and Sumerian seals at Harappan sites is just not unusual anymore. If the Naga concept, which has prehistoric origins, followed the linguistic infusion of Indo-European language aspects throughout much of the world, then this would be help in explaining the mythic infusion of the concept. So, we can argue that the archetypical nature of serpent spirits or a mythic narrative that says Naganosis spread outward from a central ancient source throughout Greater Asia. In the end, it doesn't matter because syncretism, cultural spread, modern interpretations, and global mythic interface obscure the actual trail. Serpent nature spirit archetypes are prehistorically transmitted interconnected beliefs. As I am here dealing primarily with understanding the current reality of the Naga mythos, as well as the magical pragmatics of dealing with these forces called Naga. It is an interesting question, but hardly matters. In the mythic cosmos, all things are flexible. The great primal Naga Sesha, or Anatta, is said to encircle the world much as Surtur, the Norse primal serpent god, does. Both are associated with a tree of life, along with a deep connection to the under-earth water realm connected by waters that flow above and below. The association between springs, rivers, and serpents is obvious once one has viewed as a river from on high. The emergence of a serpent from its hole and a spring from the ground is also a somewhat obvious mythic interface. We can look further into the natural symbolism of flowing waters in nature and look at the currents in the ocean, the patterns of erosion, the running of rain down a stone wall. It is no surprise that Naga and the pre-Hindu and Hindu mythologies are always associated with rivers, springs, lakes, and rain. In this manner, they are also associated with fertility and the underworld, as most of the fresh water of the planet flows through invisible water tables and channels under the earth. It is also interesting to note that the ley lines, also called dragon lines, are found to coincide with underground rivers. Dragons are, of course, another form of Naga. Add to this the obvious phallic symbolism invoked by a serpent, and some have noted that the fact that serpents emerge from an egg unlike mammals, is also a strong symbolic image with great power. In fact, the egg circled by a serpent is a holy symbol in Hermeticism and a number of cross-cultural religious traditions. The association of fertility, crops, water for livestock, and wealth also appear natural connections for early humans to make. So, we find the Naga associated with forms of wealth and fertility, both metaphorically as well as in concrete forms, like the physical wealth of gems and precious metals from deep underground, or wealth in the form of conception of children by women ritually circling a Naga shrine. This is a common sight in India. Of course, some serpents are poisonous and their bites can be fatal. Many sources claim that the connection between Naga and water is due to the annual monsoons and floods in Asia during late summer. At this time, the serpent burrows are flooded and snakes often enter human abodes seeking shelters. One can definitely say this is rarely a good mix. Thus, Naga are said to be fickle, moody, and sometimes prone to violence and quick to take offense. They can kill or curse as easily as they can bring fertility, wealth, and healing. Much depends on how you ritually approach them. It is interesting that the serpent goddess, often considered the mother of Naga, is Manasa Devi, and one of her primary attributes is to protect or heal from snakebite. The big Naga festivals, by the way, also occur around the beginning of monsoon times. This connection between monsoons, poisons, and healings may seem nonsensical to those not versed in certain ancient healing traditions, but it is very much prevalent in many cultures. The same gods that cause disease are often invoked to heal. My own patron goddess, Sekhmet, the god Sekhmet in Egypt, and the god Ares in Greece, both of whom are offered in healing in their temples while possessing very aggressive warlike reputations, come to mind. It is also noted by several historians that many Naga names mentioned in the Vedas are connected with certain medicinal plants. Bridging this to the primal tradition of honoring Naga at the base of a large tree, often a pipal tree, we must note a snake tree plant connection, which is also found in many cultures. The symbol for Asclepius, the demigod of healing in Greek mythology, is a staff with a serpent entwined, the caduceus, the exact symbol found on many Naga stelae found all over India. The image of the serpent of wisdom in the tree is a staple of Hermeticism and Kabbalah and addition to Christianity, and is still found in almost all esoteric orders. It should be remembered that the staff of Moses transformed into a serpent at his command and was a symbol of his divine power. The history of which I speak of this Naga in Asia stretches back to earliest prehistoric remains found in Southwest Asia. Serpents, double-headed serpents, even Harappan and Mohenjo-daro seals go back to 4000 BC, show serpent spirits and connect them with very early god images, like the famous horned god identified as Pashupatayi Shiva, Shiva as Lord of Beasts, also known as An. Before the Aryan tribes swept into this area in successive waves, there were tribal groups further north in what today is Kashmir and Pakistan called Naga, and there exist still today many Naga tribes. Differently, there are also numerous Naga Hindu and Tantric sects which may have once been exclusively connected to these tribal cultures, but which today are not always so identified and are more cult appellations. You can see that this can get a bit confusing. There are many wonderful books on the Naga tribes, art, and costumes, but I mention this here mostly to show how fluidity, the mythologies mixed with the historical realities can occur. So, it is so obvious that the Aryan interpretation also brought serpent gods with them as well. These alien gods seem to interface with the indigenous Dravidian serpent gods, and so nothing becomes quite as clear-cut as one might like when searching for the origins of these slippery serpent spirits. As the various cultures emerged, the holy books of what later would be called Hinduism were codified, And as we look in the sutras and Vedas and other holy books, we can see that they often interchange historical Naga princes and kings with Naga, serpent demigods, princes and kings. Many king Naga, like Takshaka or Vasuki, are often mentioned as both devas, as past living kings or princes. So where the line is drawn between serpent spirit and the historical personages deified is lost in the evolving Naga mythos. With that said, let us take a deep serpent breath. We shall hold up here for now until we begin our further explorations along this slippery serpent path. Won't you please hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for the next installment of this slippery serpent. Namaste, namaskaram.